it's Lisa Stens from Lisa's Creative Corner. Welcome to day 24 of the 31 Days of Christmas Card series. Today I'm going to show you how to make this really pretty wreath card that has lots and lots of dimension. We're going to start out by choosing a paper from this beautiful wood grain paper packet. There's so many different colors and patterns and designs in this paper packet, but I want to choose something very simple and very basic because I'm going to be stamping on it. So I think I'm going to go ahead and choose this very simple white grain that just has a little bit of pattern on it. And I want to make a circle in the center to use as a guide for my stamping. So I just happen to have my circle thin cuts dies out, and so I'm using the largest circle as a template. And it's about a 2.5-inch circle, so I'm just tracing the inside of it with pencil, again, just to use as a guide for my stamping. I'm using a brand new stamp set from the November-December catalog called Merry Borders, and there's all kinds of fun leaves and things on this stamp set, but I wanted to use it for the pine needles, and they actually come as a strip on this stamp set because they're supposed to be for a border, but I went ahead and cut them with my micro tip scissors, and then when I attached it to the block, I curved it just a little bit so that when it went around the circle, it would look more like a wreath. So now I'm just using my New England Ivy ink pad, and I'm stamping all around that pencil circle that I have in the middle of my paper. And I'm not being super careful because I know I'm going to fill in those open spots with another stamp, and then I'm going to have a bunch of different things that go on top of it, so it doesn't have to be perfect. So now I'm attaching another set of pine needles from the same stamp set, and I'm just going around and filling in those open spaces. Then I'm going to fill in just a little bit of the inside of that wreath by inking up just the tips of that stamp so that just the ends of those pine needles are showing on the inside. And I cut this 2-layer wreath using an image from the Flower Market Cricut collection, and I used espresso and glacier cardstock for this little wreath. And then to attach the top layer, I used some liquid adhesive. Now once that dried, I attached it directly on top of the stamped wreath with more liquid adhesive. And then I cut some little holly leaves from some white glitter paper, and these holly leaves came from the Flower Market Cricut collection as well. So now I'm going to just go ahead and lay them around on top of my wreath just for placement. And I'm going to go ahead and adhere them with some liquid glass. And I'm just adding liquid glass just to the base so that it lifts up a little bit on the ends. I'm just going around making sure that they line up fairly well and that there aren't too many gaps in between. Then I cut a bunch of smaller holly leaves from some espresso cardstock. I'm going to add a little bit of this carnation red liquid pearls to the tips of these little berries. While I set those aside to dry, I'm going to go ahead and work on the word peace that goes on top of the card. So I'm going to use the thin cut that came with the Merry Border stamp set and create 4 die cuts from some scarlet cardstock. And to create a little more dimension, I'm just adhering all of them on top of each other to create a nice thick die cut. Once I have all 4 layers attached to each other, I'm going to add some liquid glass on top. And once this liquid glass dries, it's going to create a nice shiny look. Now the key is to let this dry in a place where it's not going to get touched. So I'm going to move it around with the tip of my scissors and set it aside. I matted my stamped piece to a piece of scarlet cardstock and then created a 5.5 by 5.5 inch card base from some espresso cardstock and attached all those pieces together. And now that my piece die cut is finally dry, I'm going to go ahead and attach it to the center of my wreath. Because the die cut is so thin, I'm going to use some of these 3D foam dots and cut them in half with my non-stick micro tip scissors and use those in the center. And then I'm going to use a little bit of liquid glass just on the ends, and that should hold it in place nicely, and then the foam dots in the middle should raise it up just the perfect amount so that it's nice and flat. And now that my holly berries are dry, I'm going to go ahead and attach those to the wreath. And these are just so thin and delicate, so I'm going to use some tweezers, and that way I have a little more control. And I'm going to use liquid glass again to attach these, but I noticed that the stems were a little bit too long, so I just trimmed those off before I tucked them inside the wreath. So I'm just going around and tucking them underneath the white glitter pieces to hold them in place. Once I have them all attached, I think the front is done, and I'm going to go ahead and work on the inside. I'm going to use the same pine needle stamp that I used on the outside to create a border on the inside. So I'm just stamping it all the way around on this piece of white daisy cardstock. And once I'm done, I'm going to use the red liquid pearls to create some little holly berries. I finished up the inside with this Merry Christmas die cut, which came from the Yuletide Borders thin cut set. I'm pretty happy with the way this card turned out. It's got a lot of dimension, and it's a little bit different than the type of cards that I normally create. I hope you enjoyed the process of watching me make this card, and I hope it inspires you to make something similar. You can find links to all the supplies that I used down below. Don't forget to check out the rest of the Design Team's projects this month as well for lots more Christmas inspiration. Thanks for stopping by today, and we'll see you next time.